Welcome to Cash Chats with me, Andy Webb from BeCleverWithYourCash.com. This is the podcast to help you make the most of your money. In episode 375, myself and Deputy Editor Amelia Murray will be taking you through the top money stories from the last week, covering everything from changes to child benefit through to eBay fees. All of that and much, much more in between. So let's get straight into it and welcome over Amelia back to the show. Hello, Amelia.
Hello again. You all right?
I'm good. And yourself?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So let's kick off with child benefit. What's been going on here? Why is it important that everyone knows about these changes?
So essentially there's two changes, which affects the amount you'll get per child and the fact that more people will be getting it. So to cover the first one, if you've got one child, you will now get £1,331 a year, which is an extra £83.20 a year, and up to £881 a year for any additional child. So that's an extra £54.60. It's the equivalent to £25.60 a week for the first child and £16.95 per week for every other child. But what's especially interesting is the high income tax charge threshold, which is also changing. So this kicks in when you earn a certain level of salary. It used to be 50 grand, but it's now increased to 60 grand. So what it means is if you or your partner earn between £60,000 a year and £80,000 a year, you can still claim child benefit, but you'll pay a charge equivalent to 1% for every £200 of income above £60,000. Which is, it sounds really complicated, but essentially the more you earn, the less child benefit you get. And if you earn above £80,000 a year, you'll basically pay a charge equivalent to the entire benefit. It's been kind of disputed, like people hate this charge because it's one of those old tax charges which doesn't make a lot of sense. It feels complicated for no reason. But the good news is around 500,000 more families are going to benefit as they've moved the thresholds, which until I think this year they haven't increased with inflation at all. So more and more people are actually losing out.
It's been really controversial, this one, hasn't it? And this was one of the announcements made quite recently. Was it in the budget this year? It wasn't it? Just last month they announced that they were going to change this. So, the weird kind of situation where you could have two people in a household both earning 49,000 and they would get full child benefit, but you could have one household where only one person was working and they had £50,001 and they'd get no child benefit. So this is the start of a change over a couple of years to kind of try and get rid of that weird quirk in the law. And as you say, the big thing here is that increase in that threshold from 50k to 60k, and then that taper rate. You said it is really weirdly complicated, isn't it? That taper rate that if you earn between 60 and 80k, then gradually you start losing how much child benefit you receive. But it's good news, and I think if you're already getting child benefit, then you don't need to do anything. You'll just get that little bit extra, as you said. But if you weren't already claiming it, then you need to do it, don't you? You need to, particularly if you're in those kind of higher salary thresholds, you're not going to suddenly get this. You have to go and sort it out.
Exactly. And even if you are earning above the higher threshold, it's definitely worth claiming, especially if you or your partner are out of work, because by claiming child benefit, you earn the national insurance credits, which kind of contributes to your state pension when that time comes.
Yeah, and we talked about that last week in terms of the changes to NI contributions, didn't we? So this is a really, really important thing, that if you are eligible to go and make sure you apply for it. Even if you're not eligible, it's worth applying for it just because you get those credits. So I think every time we do this, we're going to be talking about some kind of price hike. That's the world that we live in. And there are a few to talk about this week. And one of them has been announced by the NHS. That's going to come into play on the 1st of May. And it's not a huge one, but it's certainly something that people should be aware of. What's happening here?
Yeah, so it's the prescriptions which are going up again. It happens every year. From May the 1st, the price of the single medication prescription is going up by 25p. So not a huge increase. You'll be paying £9.90 rather than £9.65. And the cost of the prescription prepayment certificate, PPC, which is how I'll refer to them because I'll be tripping over myself. These give you unlimited prescriptions for a fixed cost for a fixed time. They are also increasing in price. So the 3-month one is increasing from £31.25 to £32.5. And there's a 12-month one, which is also going up from £111.60 to £114.50. So these are really useful if you have one or more prescriptions regularly a month. And it makes sense to buy the prepayment certificate now ahead of the price rise. Yeah, if that's you, basically.
Yeah, because I think it works out. As long as if you get one prescription every month, you're probably going to save money with this. And the more you have, the more money you'll save, because it is effectively that season ticket. It doesn't matter how many prescriptions you get in that time, you'll pay that price. So for people with regular medication, I think these are vital. And I think Money Saving Expert did an investigation in this last year. There was a huge number, about 1 million people were eligible for this who didn't apply for it last year. And okay, they're not losing a huge amount of cash, maybe sort of 40 or 50 quid over a year, but with all the other increases going on, that does make a difference. So if you get regular medication, really do check this out. But of course, the other thing to remember is there are other ways to get free prescriptions. Obviously, depending where you live, it's free in Scotland anyway, I think, isn't it? But in England, at least, if you're under 16, if you are over 60, if you're pregnant, or if you've had a baby in the last 12 months, then you get free prescriptions. So it might be that you don't actually need to pay for anything anyway. So do check that you can't avoid that. And the classic as well, can you buy it for less just over the counter? Because it's a flat rate per prescription. Often you are saving a huge amount of money. I know in the past I've had like a private prescription and it was scandalous how much they wanted me to pay. So I got it via my doctor instead. But sometimes someone might suggest you have a prescription for something which is much cheaper to get elsewhere. So do check those things out. So do have a look at that. The other price increase, a couple one of them. One that's happened straight away was Spotify. Again, they've put prices up again, haven't they?
Yeah, and you have covered this very nicely already. But yeah, just to kind of recap, it's going up £1 for the premium per month, so that's up to £11.99, and then Duo and Family is going up by £2 a month to £16.99 and £19.99 a month. Oh, £19.99 a month. The student account isn't changing, but yeah, it's a real blow, especially since it's the second price hike in the year. And yeah, it's just getting more expensive for most people. But as you kind of said, there are ways to cut it.
Yeah, so if you want to sort of find out more about that, there's an article over at becleveryourcash.com and a video on YouTube, and I'll probably talk about it in next Tuesday's episode of the podcast as well. So you can find out a couple of hacks to get around some of this price hike at least and save yourself a little bit of money on your music streaming. And sticking with streaming, this is something a story from Disney Plus. Now, this has been coming for a while. We still don't have all the details. I've been keeping an eye out for it, but we finally got a little bit more information about Disney Plus following on the kind of what Netflix have already put into practice when it comes to getting rid of password sharing. What do we know so far?
Yes, so it's been very vague on the detail, but it should be starting in June in a few countries with a full rollout by September, where it's properly cracking down on password sharing. So until recently, or until kind of September, it would allow people like mates, friends, people living outside of your home to share passwords. But now it will be limited to people in the same household, and they're going to be able to track this by IP addresses, which basically determines your location. If you get caught sharing, they say that your account could be limited or even terminated. So yeah, so it's a proper crackdown, and it's really annoying.
It is, isn't it? I mean, this is the kind of thing that when Netflix introduced the password crackdown with their extra members last summer, it wasn't, although they started it, there was still a bit of a gradual rollout, and people, all these little workarounds, you get around if you do this, you get around if you do that. That's harder and harder to do. Bizarrely, we can Chromecast our Netflix from my sister's account onto our telly, but we can't sign in to any of the accounts. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, why my wife's phone still has access to my sister's Netflix. So we're getting around it that way at the moment. But again, it's getting harder and harder. They're cracking down with this IP tracking. Lots of people will have these kind of messages saying, are you in the household? And there is that risk, as you say, that if you do abuse this, then you could lose your account. And Disney, I think, are very likely to be following exactly that same path. So if you are currently using somebody else's Netflix, then my top tip is to binge anything that you haven't watched yet that you want to see over the next couple of months. In April and May, watch it. I mean, they said that June is when this is going to start. We don't know yet if the UK is going to be one of those first countries. I've read some articles suggesting it probably won't be, but that's people just speculating. So it could be anyway, June, July, August, maybe even September when this comes in. So I would, if you've got Disney Plus right now and you're sharing it, binge away, because it might be...
Don't leave the house.
No, just watch it. Just watch everything. That's
Stay
all you're going to do.
Summer.
Of course, when they do give us full information about how that's going to work, then we will cover it in full and give you any sort of tips or tricks that might help you get around that. But also, don't forget there are ways to get it for free Yes, it's the version with adverts, but if this does lock you away and you're previously using somebody else's and you can't afford it, then hopefully that might still be around. There might be other ways of doing this. So you hopefully still be able to watch the content without having to shell out extra money. One more price increase to cover, and this is from British Airways American Express on their Premium Plus credit card. There's a couple of changes here. I will talk about these in more detail when I do a credit card update, probably at the end of this month. So I thought it was worth us just quickly going over the headlines here. What's happened?
Yeah, so you've covered it very nicely already in the article over on Be Clever With Your Cash. But just to run through, there's a couple of changes which will affect British Airways American Express cards and British Airways American Express Premium Plus. Who's naming these cards?
Oh, no. All the Amexes are a mouthful. I just always struggle, but yeah.
So, the Premium Plus annual fee is increasing from £250 a year to £300, which is significant and loads. And that's happening from the 10th of April. If you've already got the card, you won't pay the new fee until you renew for another year, as long as it's after the 1st of August. There's no fee on the BA Amex card anyway, and they're not introducing anything. That's staying the same. There's also changes being made to the companion voucher with regards to the spending threshold. So previously, you'd get the voucher, which is a real draw. People love it, don't they? The companion voucher, because it gets you the free BA flight on the same flight. So it's effectively a free flight with your Avios points. But I know at closer inspection, it's not as good as it seems. But
I'm not always the biggest fan of these. I think they can be useful depending on where you're going, but you do need to have these companion vouchers, enough points already earned to pay for the first flight to get the buy one get one free flight. So there are issues with them, but again, you're right. Lots of people love them, and people particularly like to kind of a real treat flight. Maybe they want to go business class somewhere, or even first class. If you've got enough points, you need a lot of points for this. But yeah, big draw of these cards are the companion vouchers. So what's happening there?
So previously you get the voucher if you spent £10,000 on the BA Premium Plus card and £12,000 on the BA Amex card. And now the spending limit is going up to £15,000 on both.
Yeah.
Which is a significant increase and a lot to spend on your credit card. And so these changes are going to happen on the 1st of November, but they can kick in partway through your membership year. So unlike the other changes, there's not like a clean break. It's going to happen regardless of where you are in the membership year. However, you can cancel, and this is the kind of like another interesting bit to it. You can cancel your card if you've not completed the year for a partial refund. Now, there's been lots of talk about Amex stopping this perk, but they haven't put an end to it yet. So, until they do, you can cancel if you're not happy with the changes, and get the refund pro rata.
Yeah, and this is what's interesting about this. We reported something about July last year. They said they were going to end pro rata refunds in September or October of last year. Then September or October came along, whichever month it was, and they said, oh no, we're going to pause it. And we're going to pause it until at least the end of February 2024. And the end of February 2024, but when it came and gone and they still hadn't introduced the end of pro rata refunds, what they've said now, so with this offer, is it doesn't just apply this extension of the pausing of the end of pro rata refunds. God, that was as much a mouthful of naming one of their cards, wasn't it? It's for all Amex cards, not just the BA Amex Premium Plus, until at least the 1st of August, when the new fee will come into play for existing card holders. So in that interim period, doesn't mean it will start on the 1st of August. It could be, even later. But it's a useful one to know about if you are concerned about, being, like if you don't think there's no way I'm going to spend £15,000 on this card in a year, and that's the whole reason I've got it to trigger a bonus, 2-for-1 flight. If you don't think you can do it, then maybe you want to cut your losses now and cancel it and get a refund on what you've paid so far. But also I think it's a good heads up for anyone with any of the Amexes. If you have earned those welcome bonuses, those lucrative welcome bonuses that I often tell you about, then this is time to go, right, you've got the bonus, cancel it maybe and get that refund on the rest of the fees. Just be really careful here with the membership reward cards. So not the BA cards. This is the gold card and the platinum card. If you cancel your card and you haven't spent your points, you will lose those points. So either spend the points or open up the free American Express rewards credit card, and that'll protect your points that you've built up so far. But yeah, I'll cover this more detail sort of later in the month, but it's just worth a heads up for everyone with an Amex right now for those things. Okay, the next story, Amelia, is a big report from the FCA called Financial Lives. They do this every year, looking at the state of our finances effectively, and it's some pretty grim reading, isn't it?
Yeah, it's painting a really bleak picture of people's finances in the UK today. We've got some really startling figures about how people are coping financially. For example, 14.6 million people are not coping financially or finding it difficult. We've got 5.9 million adults, which is 11%, 1 in 10 people. They have no disposable income. A quarter of people are working overtime, picking up more hours or a second job just to kind of get by. And 7.4 million people are struggling with bills. Um, Millions of people are going without eating. This is the state of the UK today. It's an improvement on the survey last year, but in terms of historical data, it's far worse. Millions more people are struggling to kind of keep up with everyday expenses, and it just goes to show that the road to recovery since the pandemic is still long and is still in the future. Um, yeah, it's a really sad state.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why all the stories we talk about on the podcast, the whole point we choose them is to kind of, help you people know there are what some solutions possibly could be, or point people in the right direction. I think this is a particularly pertinent one there because, if people are struggling, a lot of the time they do struggle on their own and they don't go and seek the help and advice that is out there that is free and independent. And I think if you are someone who is struggling, if you're someone who those sort of things, if you were filling in this survey yourself, you would have been one of the people who talk about unable to pay bills, missing a bill or a credit payment or in these kind of things, then go to places like Citizens Advice, National Debtline, Step Change. These are free and independent charities who will take you with no judgment, try and help you find a solution to some of those problems that can hopefully get you out the other end in a better place. So yeah, please do that. And if that isn't you, if you think, I'm all right, actually, I think this survey also highlights that there is quite a divide in the UK. We know this anyway, particularly since the pandemic and the lockdowns really accelerated that, but it still exists. I see it in the content that we often produce, the content that the comments that people put in our Facebook group. There are plenty of people out there who are doing absolutely fine, maybe even doing better than ever. But just because you are, it doesn't mean everyone else is, as this survey shows. Some people, they might be just about managing, they might be really struggling. And in that case, I would just urge you to just have a sort of look at your mate's situation, your friends, even if they're not saying anything, if they're kind of anything you think might suggest that they are in this situation, do just signpost them to places that we just spoke about, or maybe introduce them to content that you found useful helping you with your finances, anything which potentially might be able to, mean they don't sort of suffer in silence.
Yeah, totally. And I think what we've seen as well, without wishing to kind of scare anyone, is your circumstances can change like
Yeah.
overnight. We saw, people who've always been comfortable, um, be really affected by the changing mortgage rates. So all of a
Yeah.
sudden, you're having to find hundreds or thousands of pounds to cover the cost of your mortgage that you could previously afford comfortably because the rates changed. You've got the cost of living crisis, and if you're a family and suddenly everything is costing more for you, your kids, your home, your car, um, everything changes. And we've seen also the instability of work, illness, anything could happen. You could, relationships end. And I think this is a real insight into the financial resilience that through people who were previously comfortable suddenly find themselves vulnerable. It's like it is really worrying. And I think we've seen that over the last couple of years. People who, they might have had a pot of savings, they might have been able to go on holidays like each year, and all of a sudden the circumstances have completely changed, and they find themselves having to contact their, energy provider to see if there's any support there, which there is, by the way. That was something I wanted to say. Like, contact your providers if you are struggling. Like, if they can put you on a payment holiday, they can offer you support. A lot of the energy providers have grants and they have support measures when you're not even a customer. And if you are getting debt advice, you can ask for breathing space for 60 days, which
Yeah.
shields you, for interest and further fees. So, you're not alone if you are struggling, and there's nothing to be ashamed about because it could happen to any of us.
Yeah, it really could. We do our annual survey, and I'm sure many people watching or listening to this, hopefully they filled it in. We had almost 600 of you do that, which we really, really appreciated. But one of the questions there is, I do ask, how would you assess your own financial situation? Obviously, that's not the most kind of like, people can view their own finances differently to how someone else would view your finances. But certainly there was an increase in people who were in that kind of just about managing. Not too many people who would say they're really, really struggling, but definitely an increase in people who are just about managing. And they're the ones that are probably at that kind of real chance where it could change at any time, because it's just one little thing, unexpected cost or losing the job or something like that, which suddenly means, those things you're just getting through right now might not carry on. So yeah, please do kind of, seek out that help if you need it, or do what you can now to kind of get yourself in maybe in a slightly more resilient place. All they kind of talk about things you can do and ways you can save money and bargains and deals, but the priority should be clearing any debts you've got, and then after that building up an emergency fund. That's kind of the bedrock for everything we do at Be Clever Your Cash. It's about those things first, and then you can do all the kind of cool and exciting things afterwards. But protect yourself for if something goes wrong. Hopefully nothing will, but at least you've got a better position if you do. We've got a few more to go through now. A couple of membership loyalty schemes are changing. The first one is Subway. Now, this actually was a report came out a few months ago, but the deadline is approaching, so it's worth just mentioning, giving people a heads up here. What's happening for people with regular users at Subway?
Subway is changing its loyalty scheme on the 15th of May, which means use your points before then, please. Otherwise, you will lose them. They're not being transferred to the new scheme. And effectively, the changes are going to mean, as expected, you're going to have to spend more to get more. So like at the moment, you can get, it's 100 points, which can get you a hot drink, 200 points gets you a side, and 1,000 points gets you the sandwich. And with the changes that are coming up, they're changing the structure slightly. So 150 points will get you £1 off like any order, and you'll need to redeem at least £1 at a time. So yeah, definitely worse.
It's a weird one, isn't it? I think we've got like all loyalty schemes, or the majority of loyalty schemes. If you're shopping at these places, take advantage, but don't shop somewhere just to get some points. So don't go to Subway just because you can get points. Go there because that's your only choice, or you really want to go there. The loyalty scheme is an extra. And this new scheme, it's a shame that they've devalued it. But but like you say, 15th of May, 14th of May, was it?
Changes 15th of May, use your points by the 14th.
Yeah, so any points you've used up, just make sure you use them, because it'd be a shame if all those sandwiches have been for nothing. And the other loyalty scheme which is changing is from Expedia and Hotels.com. I had some emails from them this week about it. I do want us to kind of cover it on the website properly in the coming weeks, but it's worth giving people a bit of a heads up in case they've had these same emails and have been a bit confused about what to do.
Yeah, so Hotel.com Rewards and Expedia Rewards is being replaced by an entirely new scheme called One Key. And it's going to be disappointing for some. Sorry, I'm going to spoiler alert there. But basically, it's going to allow you to earn and redeem rewards on Hotel.com, Expedia, and also Vrbo.
That's how you say it, Vrbo. Yeah, VRBO. Yeah.
So they're the home rentals, and you can earn kind of credits on that as well. And so in a nutshell, it's offering 2% credit on spend at hotels.com, plus home rentals packages, car rentals, cruises, activities, those kind of things via Expedia and Vrbo. If you're booking flights on Expedia, you're only going to earn 0.2%, which is
generous.
£100 booking. So not great. I mean, the old Expedia scheme wasn't brilliant anyway, but the Hotel.com scheme was pretty good. So with the old scheme, for every night booked in a hotel, you get a stamp. And for every 10 nights booked, you get a free reward night. And that would be made up of like the average cost of all those 10 nights. And you could also use it as part payment if like you wanted a better hotel room or something. So it was a decent deal, which is
it's effectively 10%, wasn't it? 10% back on every hotel booking was really good. I started using hotels.com only a couple of years ago. I kind of avoided it before that, and I don't use it for everything. I will shop around for different prices because all the different hotel booking sites can sometimes have better price on one than the other, even when you factor in a discount. But yeah, this 10% has been good. So yeah, that's a big drop from 10% to 2% on the new scheme.
Exactly. I mean, there is a silver lining,
Yeah.
which kind of. So under the new scheme, you can use your credits for anything on the free website. So it's not just hotels. So yeah, if you're adventurous or you drive a car and you want that on your holiday, you can kind of use that. You're also, unlike Subway, you will be allowed to keep your credits. They're going to be converted to one key cash, and the stamps will also be converted if you haven't kind of reached 10 yet. Some calculation based on their existing value, but essentially you get to keep them under the new scheme.
Yeah, and what we don't know is yet when it's going to launch. They've said between July and October. So again, like Disney, there's a window when this is going to be happening. What's worth knowing though is this is about that July date change. It's not about when you book your hotel, it's when you stay at your hotel. So if you've already made a booking right now with hotels.com for a trip in any time between July and October, if the new scheme has launched, you'll get the 2%, even though you've booked it now. If it hasn't launched, you'll still get the 10% on hotels.com. So I've actually got a hotel booked by them in June, and that's good. That's before the transfer is going to happen. So I will get my 10% back on that. But it's just worth knowing that if you are going to book any hotels or have booked hotels from July onwards, and you're doing it with them because of this cashback, it might not happen. And maybe if you've got a booking which can be cancelled for free, you might be worth doing a quick sort of look around. I like to use Kayak, but there are other comparison sites out there, and just see if that same hotel or maybe a different hotel has got a lower price elsewhere, or might be able to combine it with going via Quidco or Top Cashback, which incidentally you can do that with hotels.com as well to double stack your cashback. But certainly worth having a look at that over the coming weeks to see if it's something you want to be doing. A couple more things for us to cover. I think we've still got time for these. What is going on the high street? Yet another closure.
Ted Baker is the latest. So they've got 45 stores across the UK. It's not quite the blow to the high street of the Body Shop closures. But they're closing 15 stores and cutting 245 jobs. This is all happening quite soon. So 11 of the shops are going to be closing by the 19th of April, and that includes Bristol, Leeds, Oxford, Nottingham, Milton Keynes, and the rest are said to be closing in the coming weeks.
So I guess what's the kind of the situation here? If you've already made an order or you've got a gift card, what should people be doing?
Yeah, so similar to what we said about the Body Shop, you can still buy in store and online, but obviously be wary, because if stuff goes wrong, we don't know how long the stores or the business is going to continue to be operating for. And it is still honouring the 30-day return system that it's got going. But again, if you've got something to return, be quick. And if you have a gift card, use them as soon as possible, and probably opt for going into a store rather than online, just in case anything happens and you don't get your delivery fulfilled.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with all of these things. They're struggling. They're not getting rid of the business completely, but there's issues. So you just don't know. So it's, I would absolutely agree with you there. Use those gift cards, return things now. And, there is that kind of, but you want the business to survive. If you like them, you might want to buy stuff, because if you stop buying stuff at them, then they won't survive. But just have that caveat that there is uncertainty going on. So if you can go into a shop and try clothes on, so you have a better chance of knowing you're going to keep it, then I think that is a good move there. Less chance of needing to return stuff and finding there's no business to return it to. And while we're on clothes, one last story is from eBay, and this is, I think, is a good news story. What's come out of the bag with eBay?
eBay is scrapping the fees for the sale of secondhand clothing. So
they're scrapping the fees. It's
a really good move, but I'm probably coming with my cynical head, which I normally do. You can say it's good news and I'll be like, yeah, but it's great if you're having a clear out, you're a secondhand seller, you've got stuff that you want to sell, because to be honest, it put me off using eBay. I was like, I try and take advantage of the free listing fees if you sold something for 99p. Oh, you listed for 99p. But then by the time it was sold, it was taking all this, I would only sell it for like a quid or something, £1 4p. And
Yeah.
then it would take off quite a chunk, considering all the effort that you're putting in to, package it up, post it, make sure it's clean, and the listing itself. So it's claiming that it's trying to reduce waste. It wants to promote the circular economy of people kind of, selling on, preventing stuff going into landfill. But it's also quite, it is a business at the end of the day. And there are other rivals which are kind of, doing the same thing. So Vinted and Depop don't charge seller fees. They're very popular with younger people. Depop removed its 10% seller fee in March. And Vinted, as far as I've used it, has never charged sellers a fee. Instead, it charges the buyer a kind of buyer protection fee, like based on what you're buying. But it's come at a time when it's already introduced another fee, which has caused, loads of drama with people who use it. So it's a regulatory operating fee.
This is eBay, right? Yeah.
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 So eBay, and it's 0.35% of the total sale amount, including postage. And that started April the 8th this year. And it means that you're being charged 13% of what you're earning, whatever the total price is, plus a 30p charge, which is significant. So yeah.
It is a big chunk, yeah.
It's giving with one hand, it's taking with the other. It's a classic business move. It's trying to, attract the younger kind of people who are kind of happily using Vinted and Depop. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it kind of changes people, what sites people are using to sell their secondhand clothes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Vinted is something that I've not used, but my wife's been using it over the last sort of 3 or 4 months. And I know quite a few people, Nikki and Zoe on the team, have been using it as well. And in fact, Nikki did write a guide to using Vinted over on the website last month, I think it was. So if you are also new to it, if you are someone who, like me, has only ever sold on eBay, then do check out our guide there and see if it's something you want to give a go. There are still, risks associated with all these things, but it does seem that, stuff goes quite fast and a good chance for people to make a bit of cash on stuff which they don't need anymore.
I'm a Vinted convert as well.
Yeah.
The fees was one thing, but also I think the bidding process makes me anxious. So whether I was selling or buying, I don't like the competition. I don't like being on the edge of my seat and wondering what's going to happen. And I like, it's more streamlined with Vinted. You set your price, people can make you offers, but you don't have to accept them. But the downside is your items can linger for some time. Unlike eBay, you kind of set the 7 days, 10 days for them to be sold. But I've had stuff up on Vinted for months. And it's good. It's good stuff, guys. So if anyone's interested, I've got some really nice garments for sale.
Well, we can link to your Vinted store along with all the other articles that Amelia and I have discussed in today's episodes over in the show notes, which you'll find over at becleverwithyourcash.com/podcast. That is it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, cheers.
Thanks, guys.